What's good, Deviants? It's me, Micah Marquez, joined by the amazing Leon Curry, and we're back for yet another episode. On this episode, we're talking about freeing your mind. We are both Black and queer folks. We're speaking to a community of Black and brown and queer people. And on this episode, we're sort of going to begin by talking about religion, specifically Hebrew faiths that condone slavery in some texts and condemn queer sex. As we take on those faiths, if we are raised with them, we find that we're going to be living a life in shame as Black and brown queer people who have endured years of trauma and slavery and etc., as well as actualizing ourselves in our queer lives and love. So the need to kind of undo that shame is so important because as we live in shame, we've learned that we also partake in what healthcare professionals call risky behaviors. Risky behaviors are when you live in shame, you basically do things in the dark trying to hide, but as you do them, they're unsafe, they're unsanitary, and we find ourselves in unhealthy, unhappy positions. So we're having a discussion today about freeing our minds. It is wholly a mission here at Deviant to make our community safer, happier, healthier. So as we have this conversation, you, Leon, are a Black queer man. How do you go about addressing religion in your life?
It's still a journey, and it gets more interesting. I would call myself a Christian. I'm a believer. And that being Black and queer, so many contradictory things have made me dive deeper into what I think faith is. I know you're a preacher's kid, and y'all be preacher's kids. Y'all got some stuff going on. But I'm just a person who was raised in a church that teaches you were born in sin. Like there's nothing you can do except love God and hope for the best. And it just makes everyone's hellbound basically, and that's depressing. I remember coming into my queerness, I was never suicidal, but I would pray, if I don't wake up, that would be okay, because so I don't have to do the sin of being homosexual again. Wow. But as I deep dive into it, I find these things, especially in the Christian faith, that are so funny. You know, Christian faith, I guess you can sum it up, is about love. And you hardly get that. You get people on the side of the road saying you're going to hell,
God
fag,
hates
and
you.
stuff like
Right,
that.
Yeah.
But I find that's not the case. And I find it so funny because if you read the description of what God is, God's description is queer. I'm either man or female, but we can't accept that in our children. Like we accept this big idea of what a God is, but when someone tries to deviate out of a binary, we get freaked out.
Yeah.
And even our image of Christ, like the most popular image of Christ, when Christianity was growing, it's changed from these European features and these actual European rulers and people. It was like, oh, you're going to portray me as Christ now. And I know that has a mental effect on Black and brown people because you're praying to this God that does not look like you, but he's also from the Middle East, but he's also a person of color who is persecuted by a system.
Yeah.
But you forget all that. I think the way Black people do church resembles more closely to African origin religions, where you're falling out in the spirit and you're letting these things take over, and you're doing these rituals and sacraments. And I get mad because for all that time, I just felt like I didn't have access to being a pure person. It just was never going to happen, or I would just have to deny myself. And if I deny myself, that would be a lie. Like you could never escape this cycle of sin. And talking to more people, especially meeting more queer pastors, and I'm like, why did you even go this route? Like, were you ever going to find favor or pushback? And I still don't have a clear answer. They just choose faith. And I know faith and religion particularly is a set of rules that one chooses to follow. So I can't get mad at a person who chooses to follow a religion, but if a religion is based on a God, there has to be a moment where you have to find God for yourself.
Yeah, you hit home with so many things. And I think the first thing being when you spoke about shame and religion and how it begins at such an early age, you called me out on being a PK. I am a preacher's kid, right? And grew up in one of the largest mega churches in the Black community. I grew up in Creflo Dollar's church.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, my father is who launched the church in New York City. You know, I had 6,000 people's eyes on me every weekend and throughout the week, you know, and that is a lot of heavy weighted expectations So, you know, if this religion wasn't enough, now you're supposed to be the epitome of the religion because you're part of the family. And I can recall at such an early age when I was, you know, first found out for any difference of sexual identity, my dad, the question that he asked me was, am I dealing with a spirit of homosexuality? And, you
I'm
know,
like, yes, I'm dealing. Take it
so
over me,
straight
spirit
up.
of homosexuality.
And, you know, I can laugh about it now, but then with my dad standing over me with a belt, I was mortified, and I remember just feeling so scared after being found out. And when he left the room, I remember just staying on the ground after having been spanked, which I think is another sort of slavery tradition and thing that we've taken on in our Black community, still whipping our kids. But I remember staying there on my bedroom floor, and one, I was terrified that my dad would come back and beat me some more. But two, I just was crying and begging God. I can remember begging God in prayer, please just take this away from me. Like, why would you? You're supposed to be loved. Why would you give me this
Yeah,
thing?
it's something you can't escape. And that's the mind fuck right there, because everything we learn about religion is saying there's an escape provided. So you really have to pray for yourself in those cases.
All right, Deviants. On this episode, I am joined by the amazing King David.
Hello.
David, been a minute. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Welcome here to Deviant TV. On this episode, we are talking about Free Your Mind.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be such a great conversation to have with you because, if I'm correct, you and I both have pastoral backgrounds.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So I grew up with my father being a pastor. He was a pastor from the time I was 13 until the time I was about 24. Interestingly enough, my dad is no longer Christian. Actually, no, until the time I was about 28.
Okay.
My dad has studied theology, and he was in his doctorate program.
Okay.
And upon him completing his doctorate, he realized that he didn't agree with certain things or inconsistencies in the Christian religion.
So he sort of graduated to a new thought and theory too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he closed his church. A lot of his members thought he was crazy. A lot of them don't speak to him. Even some family members haven't. But it's been a very unique and gratifying experience for me because being someone brought up within such a structured mentality toward how we view the world and shape our views of everything, having that patriarch of that belief system say, you know what, just because I was taught this doesn't mean I have to stick with it.
Yeah.
I can question.
Yeah.
Just that in itself was very healthy for how I processed my, association or relationship with religion and spirituality and all those different things.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm inspired hearing that story alone. I think for our community, correct me if I'm wrong, for the Black community, we've had to cling to our religion so tight because it was our place of finding community. It was our safe haven. It was the savings for the community if somebody's lights got turned out. It was our only method given to us for any sort of breath of fresh air when you consider times of slavery. You had white missionaries telling us, pursue Christ or accept Christ or die. Made us abandon everything from our names to whatever our ancestral practices and beliefs were. And we clung to it and made it our own, of course, but now, like, to hear that somebody could break free of generations of a place that once afforded them, solitude, generational solitude, is really awe-inspiring. So I guess on this train of thought, how did you, it sounds like I already know how you would, see your father's example and sort of follow that to thinking for yourself. How do you advise other people who don't have your father's example to find ways of freeing their mind and thinking for themselves?
Well, interestingly, I won't say that his growth freed my mind.
Okay.
His growth affirmed my choices to free my mind. I didn't fit the mold of what it meant to be a good Christian young man. but I always felt that God had a special mission for me.
Yeah.
I always felt that even some of the challenges placed in my life, I would even be told, this is because you have so much greatness in you that the devil's always working, trying to slow you down or stop you from actualizing your greatness. So when I came out of the closet at 17 and I was going to hell and this and that, it didn't identify with who I was. So I dealt with this fracture in my identity throughout my late teens and early 20s of feeling right in these ways, but knowing I was wrong in these ways. I made it a mission to undo that for me. I started researching, what does the Bible actually say about sexuality? What does the scripture represent? What does the word homosexual refer to in the Bible? And through all of these studies, which I have a video somewhere back in the social media universe where I broke this down for my audience.
Yeah. Break it down for us a little bit.
So the simplest way I would break it down for you, I can't give you the Bible scriptures to go refer to because I don't have them with me.
Okay.
And next time I'll make sure I do. But there were very limited examples of the word homosexual being used in the Bible. And one of the ones we know is the Sodom and Gomorrah story, which the acts that were happening in Sodom and Gomorrah, by anyone's standards, even today's standards, are absolutely insane. And that's not what they were referring to. This was children with their parents, siblings with their siblings, adults with kids. Same thing when Paul visited Rome. When he reported back, he spoke of these homosexual acts, these unnatural homosexual acts. But what he was referring to were these Roman men raping and having relations with young boys who were also married Roman men committing adultery with young boys. There were no examples within the Bible speaking to loving relationships of the same sex. There was no word for that then because there was no example of that then based off of the text. So whenever we were being damned as homosexuals, what they were actually labeling was acts of adultery and pedophilia. And within same-sex interaction, not a relationship.
Okay.
So that in itself is one of the nuggets that was very freeing on that. And what I will do, I will repost, when this airs, I'll repost the link on my social media for anybody who is looking to connect the dots of what that was.
We're going to want to see it.
Yeah, it was
learn
good.
And understand that.
But for me, it started there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, that's by about 24 years old. And now from here, I am consciously undoing my mentalities. I am channeling everything through that I just outright thought before, and now I'm questioning it up against what I've learned.
Yeah.
From that point, I walked in my own journey, now identifying my purpose, that I found something that connects with, doesn't disagree with what I do believe in. And this explains why there's so much protection from a higher power, there's so much guidance from a higher power. Because I have not been forsaken or left by my God because of who I am.
Yeah.
I'm embraced. He created me just as I am, and I'm perfectly made.
Yeah.
The better I chase that,
Yeah.
I will feel better in my life, not running away from it in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, damn, man. I don't even know. that is spectacular.
Yeah.
That is, this episode is all about that. The finding God both within yourself, but also finding your purpose within the love of God and realizing that you are perfectly made. I mean, you took us right there. So, but yeah, man, I mean, how would you advise others that, that are just watching this, for instance? Where do they begin on their journey of balancing self-love and their own sort of moral compass?
I would say your first start is with loving yourself.
Yeah.
It starts with those. That's where I was going to go, and you literally spit out the word self-love. But it starts from going on that journey, because it's not a word, it's not an act of loving yourself.
Yeah.
It is many microscopic actions. It's many graces that you give yourself in your mind when you make mistakes, or how you view yourself in the ways that you have not grown. Are you your biggest critic, or are you your best friend? I'll give you some simple systems, and everyone knows simple systems that I use. I have a best friend system to love myself, and then I have a word that I ask about honor to always check to love myself, okay? So the best friend version is, what would I tell my best friend? If my best friend came to me and said, bro, this is what I did. I know it sounds crazy, but this is what happened. I will find some place of grace for my best friend. I will encourage them more than I'm going to beat them down over a situation, because I want them to move forward.
Yeah.
And I have to approach myself as my own best friend. That is loving myself perfectly, because sometimes we're confused trying to find proper love within ourselves. And when we have an example of someone else, it becomes so simple, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the best friend theory. The other one in chasing self-love or finding it is the honor word. Does this honor me? If I'm in this relationship and I'm choosing between this decision or this decision, well, one, did this action from this other person honor me? No. Okay. And what is required? Because anytime something doesn't honor you, action is required. If you don't take action, you are not properly loving yourself. Doesn't mean cutting them off. Action could be a conversation where you acknowledge what is valid and how you feel, and you say what you need, you know? But if you're not taking action whenever you're being dishonored, there's an issue within our love experience with ourselves. So those are simple ones.
Okay. I can hear someone who is not Black and brown and queer, possibly from a religious background, hearing our conversation and saying, but if you abandon church, if you abandon, the Bible, then where's your moral compass? Are you simply judging it based on your own mind? And if everybody did that, then we're gonna just all be fucking and falling and fighting. What do you say to that person? How do we find our moral compass?
Well, let's start from something that us free thinkers who are Christian-based have had to ask ourselves before. Remember the ABC in Christianity? Admit, believe, confess.
Okay.
To accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. And if you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you go to heaven. And if you don't, then you go to hell. Well, we only know about Christianity because of slavery. And for those people who believe in Hinduism or Buddhism or any other religion, it is based off of relativity, where you are in the world. So I have no belief that one book has all the answers, or one is right, or one is wrong. What you have is Buddhists who focus more on the spirit, and the Hindus and the chakras, and people who took all these elements of higher spirituality, studied it, and wrote on paper what they found to be findings. All religions are just collections of different approaches to reach the same thing, the spirit. So you are not better off grabbing one and calling it supreme, but your best bet is to take things from each and every one of them, which we already do, and we won't call it that, because when you go take yoga, what are you doing? A religious practice. When you meditate, what are you doing? A religious practice. When you study the chakras or grab crystals, these are all religious practices based off of the relativity of, here was this accessible information, because this culture studied medicine, this culture studied the body, and that's how we get to these places. So none is better than the other. What they are is a collective agreement that one makes. Each individual made their own agreement with a basis of accountability, a spiritual accountability and a spiritual guidance. That's it.
I'm grinning over here, man, because you are just wise beyond time, and I dare not say a years. I mean, just wow. King David. You have an album out.
I do. Fornication Under Consent of the King.
Fornication Under Consent of the King.
Yes.
Can you explain that title for us?
Yes, I can. Okay, so first I'll explain the music. The music is brash, the music is sexual, the music is free, but it was far more than creating something that was just sex. This was about creating something that represented this total aspect of who we are, that is our sexual identity. And I wanted to make something that felt authentic to me, but something that other people could connect to. So, with me being King David, I was looking for a title that represented what this represented. And I had the word fuck in my head. And I was like, that's so literal, that's so lame, that's not where I'm going with this. And I'm a documentary watcher, if you can't tell. I like random information. And I was watching the history of curse words. And they said the word fuck is fornication under consent of the king, because in medieval times, a king would have to grant someone permission in order to have fornication, sex outside of marriage, a physical form of consent. So they adopted the word fuck. fucking was intercourse outside of marriage, just an abbreviation. And when I recognized that, and I said, wait, fornication under consent of the what? So it was this moment where it kind of came full circle, and it was like, this is exactly what this is. This is my methodology of excusing people to embrace this aspect of who they are, to take power in it, to feel empowered by the music and their sexuality.
Yeah.
You know?
Go for Broke is such a vibe.
Yes,
Man.
thank
It's
you.
my favorite one out. Yeah. I listen. For everyone who has not already, please make sure you go and stream Fuck Fornication under Consent of the King
Yes.
by King David. David, can you also let folks know where they can find you on social media, websites?
Okay, so my home website is kingdavid.com. Very simple. All my social media handles, Twitter, Instagram. I'm now on TikTok. Boom. Is King David's World, KVNG David's World for all handles.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us on this
you.
episode of Deviant TV. I am thoroughly believing that your words are going to help so many other people find God within themselves, love of themselves, believe that God loves them. And so I thank you for sharing today.
I truly hope they do.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I actually don't identify as Christian anymore. Obviously, I know a lot about the faith because I'm raised in it. But I, first began studying, I want to say it was in Buddhism, the theories of attachment that we've been talking about, right? I think that it was my first step in journey into freeing my own mind, and then listening to people like Tina Turner and learning how to chant and, learning how to, and what it did for her to free her mind, also inspired me. And I think that is really the conversation we're having here today is why it is important for Black folks just to think for themselves. I'm not going to tell people to go one which way or another when it comes to religion or belief, but so long as they are doing something that goes back and cycles back into them believing in themselves, believing in their self-worth, so that they're not participating in risky sexual and social behaviors.
I guess that centers around getting into care, getting some kind of care. Which I'm new with. I went to one therapy session because a nigga fucked my mind up like that, and it was free. But even that one session it gave me autonomy, and I feel like that was the first time in my life I felt someone ask me, well, how do you feel? And I was like, that's not why I came here. I came here for you to tell me how to feel and tell me what to do.
That is hilarious because that's totally not the journey of therapy.
I gagged.
So therapy is another sort of graduation of care, just as you said, right? I think some people contemplate, oh my God, if I leave the Christian faith or whatever my faith may be, how do I establish a moral compass? And then we tell them, free your mind, it's okay. And they think, oh my God, that just means I'm gonna be out here acting crazy, murdering and fucking everybody, hellbound. And I think that therapy is a great way for folks to still have a moral compass guide, right? Have that person who you can trust to bounce off of, right? Bounce ideas and thoughts and feelings off of. And therapists do not tell you how to feel.
I was mad.
Contrary to popular belief.
Because all your life, someone tells you how to feel. Then someone is saying, well, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel mad. And even saying that, I was like, am I allowed to feel mad? And that was the weird part about it. And it made me interested in doing it more, but it takes work. I know your first session isn't going to be the one that heals you, maybe not even your 10th session.
Yeah.
And to uncover all those layers, you're gonna deal with hurts, you're gonna deal with pains, you're gonna cry when you don't wanna cry.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to say, my mom did this that hurt me, even though I love her to death, or these people who I love hurt me. And I feel like for Black folks, that is a huge thing. Deviants, here we are again with more conversation, more enriching conversation and content that I hope is helping you. By this point, you should have gotten a little something. But tonight we get a special conversation with Joy Petway. Now, I had to ask Micah for permission to disclose this, but this is actually Micah's therapist. And me, as a person who has been to therapy one time.
What does joy look like in your life right now? Or what do you want it to look like?
I can't even tell you what I want it to look like because I am on a journey. So, and I'm upfront with the journey because I work with so many people in my party scene. I'm a party promoter. So I just I like to have these conversations with people, and I can even be stuck in the middle. I can be stuck in the middle because I can hear other people's journey, whether they got there or they're just in the beginning. And I feel like at this particular point in my life, joy is something I'm kind of scared of because I haven't touched it often in these past 10, 11 years in New York. And that's when that's why my first therapy session was my last, because I knew this was going to require a lot of peeling back layers.
Yes.
And a lot of work that I'm like, I don't have a support system to help me peel those layers back. Like when that hour is done of therapy, then what am I supposed to do? And I don't know if I'm alone in that feeling.
I don't think that you're alone in that feeling at all. But that might be part of what your joy statement would be, is like, I want community, right? And so then let's talk about, what does it look like for you to have people that you're vulnerable with, that you can create that long-lasting support? And how are you picking the friends that you are keeping near you? And what does it mean for some of them maybe to not be as close?
See, I'm already exhausted. I'm already like, that's a journey. But I guess to get to your best self, it's a necessary journey. Now, Micah raves about you all the time, and he was even saying not too long ago that you are part of the vision of this. You helped him to achieve this vision and even build the team around it. I can imagine you hear that, you hear that a lot about vision building. How does that feel? And how did you get to the point that you wanted to be a therapist?
All great questions. I think I had to do my own vision building for myself, right? I didn't get to the therapy because I quite frankly wanted to. What happened is that I wanted to see more Black-owned businesses, and I wanted people in my generation to be able to create what their hearts desire. And what I found was that we'll get together and we rap and act and we talk about all the parties and the things that we want to create. And then we never did anything with it because we're too afraid to, because our parents told us that it was in disalignment with what they expected of us or whatever it might be. And so I ended up actually challenging a group of my friends to do a vision to reality. We had 3 months to create something from start to finish. And from that, Achieving Joy was built. So that was where my company came out of. And there were several other companies that came out of that space as well.
So, as you know, Deviant's core values are around sex positivity, body positivity, and harm reduction. And I can imagine the seed of that has to start in the mind. And we're talking about freeing your mind. So how would we come to that point to be this whole person?
Sure. I would say it happens 2 steps before it gets to the mind. It starts in the soul. It starts in our knowing, right? So if I know that I'm well, I am going to then feel well. And if I feel well, then I'm going to think well thoughts. And if I think well thoughts, then I'm going to behave in a well way.
It's beautiful. It's so simply beautiful and beautifully simple that it kind of feels, I had never thought about that before. I guess that's why we need to be talking to someone.
And that's, it goes across the board. And then I just kind of want to talk from the reverse from it, right? Like if I don't feel like I'm worth it and I go to my mind, because oftentimes what we do is begin to ask ourselves the questions, well, why ain't I worth it, right? Why don't they want me? Is the one that's very popular. And if I harp then on the reasons, my brain doesn't care, it's no respect of persons, it's going to give me all the reasons of why I'm not wanted based on what I believe about me.
And I guess that leads to risky behavior, which is something that is also a concept Deviant tries to thwart.
Exactly correct. Exactly correct. So in altering how my sense of knowing of me, my awareness of me, then I will feel something different. And it's in that feeling, it's in that heart space that everything else comes forth. And so therefore my mind will be able to support my healing. My actions will be able to support my healing. And that doesn't mean that I don't, drink no more, I don't have to go out no more. It even goes into the depths of like taking sex to the greater levels. Oftentimes when I ask people about sex, are you present? Half the time, half the people ain't even there.
I'd be drunk.
So then from a physical body perspective, like how much are you really getting to feel if you're not inside your body? To what height can we really go if you're not physically here? So all of it matters. I want people to have better sex lives. And part of that is being present.
Yeah. I know that presence can be scary after like all of queer trauma. You try to escape that presence. And with sex, I can imagine that's what leads to sex addiction and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with all of that. And the thing of the matter is, and this is something I want everyone to know, you do not have to stay and hold on to these traumas. Therapists like myself have been trained in modalities like EMDR, emotional freedom technique, all of these things to detach the traumatic experiences that's happening in your body so that you can get present and enjoy your life and stop having to run from yourself. As a sex survivor, myself, I remember there were certain areas of my body you couldn't even touch. Right? And I know for many people who've had any kind of inappropriate experience with their bodies, they stop looking at themselves from the neck down. That is one of the things that is like across the board. You just look in the mirror real quick, you put your clothes on, you're out.
And go.
Right. And so that journey to wellness is it's not always easy. However, it's beautiful to be able to stand in the mirror and see all of you and be able to be next to a partner and feel fully connected to them and to be able to have them touch areas and it not take you to a disassociative space, meaning that you go to the place in your mind that you go where you feel like you're ultimately safe. So, therapy has a capacity to kind of heal those wounds and be able to be a support in that. So know that you don't have to stay there if you don't want to.
Where can someone find you? Where can someone, and if they can't find, because I know you do Skype, like Micah's in New York and you're in Maryland. Are you even taking any more clients?
So we as a company, we are definitely taking on new clients. You can find us at www.achievingjoy.com. And we're on Instagram and Facebook and all the places in between. And if you're also looking for a beautiful POC therapist, always Psychology Today, therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black men, all of them are places where you can go, and they're in other versions of it as well. So it's tons of BIPOC therapeutic spaces. And then you can ask for, someone who's gay or queer and has your insurance, et cetera.
Okay. And I know oftentimes when we talk about therapy, it's hard to leave the situation because someone's always longing for more. So if you can leave something that you want to say or needs to be said or you think needs to be known for Black queer people seeking care, you could leave us with that.
Life is a journey. And all of our lessons are lifelong. And quite frankly, we generally have the same lesson that happens over and over and over again. So get clear about your lesson and be kind and gentle with yourself because you are the person that is doing the healing. You are the vessel, you're the tool, you're the solution, you're everything, and you're important.
All right, that was beautiful. And thank you so much for that. Thank you for talking with us.
Thank you.
And folks, honestly, this is why Deviant was began to begin with. We're born on the mission of freeing the minds, lives, bodies of Black and brown queer folks. That is why we have those 3 core values: sex positivity, body positivity, and drug safety, because we believe in the freedom of the mind, body, and soul. We do hope that you'll take from this episode to free your mind and understanding the value of who you are. I know that it began with my own personal journey and how long it took me to learn to love my damn self. But in finding that, was like, you know what? Everybody deserves this. Like, it took me so much time, a long and painful boomeranging, but got here. And so now we hope to toss that back to you folks. Definitely looking forward to hearing you all's thoughts, theories, on what it's like to free your mind. A free mind is so important. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of heaven. And, as you pursue that, pursue whatever resources are available to you. Again, you can find what resources we make available at Deviant, deviant.live/safety. You'll see all our partners in DC, New York, and Atlanta. But to watch this episode and to offer your voice, we'd love to have you answer our survey at deviant.live/play. You'll find this and many more episodes there as well. Thanks for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you with a free mind.
Talk to you guys again later.